Khan here for Seconds Out with Frank Smith. The wise man once said, so nice I have to do it twice, second time round this week. How you doing, sir?
Good, mate. Good. And now it's in person. It's a lot better in person rather than that, terrible 4G I got. But it's good.
Well, it's always good to speak to you, whatever the format is. You enjoying the sights, the sounds, the roadblocks of Birmingham?
Yeah, I am. I like it around here, apart from the weather. But the weather was bad when I left London this morning, so it's not too bad. Enjoying it being somewhere where they really get behind their boxing. We've got a great turnout tomorrow night for a great next gen card, so excited for a big night of boxing.
Good mix of fights on the card.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. And these next gen shows are so important as well. So important. You obviously got Alycia, Olympic gold medalist, headlining in his hometown. Great to see he's moved so quickly, and he's really not far off from a world title. Alycia, because of the pace he's moved at. Cyrus Patterson as well. Brilliant fighter. Sol Dakers on the card. You got the Kane Baker rematch against Jordan Flynn on there. You got Khalil Majid, first fight with us as well. You got Aaron Bowen. You got Spider. So many great fighters on the card. Muhammad Ali. I forgot one, but because my mind's gone.
Khalil Majid.
I said Majid. His first fight with us. I think I did. But yeah, stack card top to bottom. And like I say, these next gen shows are so important because they build up those stars of tomorrow who are going to headline the big shows. So yeah, excited to be here in great numbers.
For someone like Galal, look, obviously in a boxing sense, he's definitely on the path towards superstardom. But in terms of making him a star at the lower weights, it's always difficult. Do you feel that sense of difficulty to make him that star because of the weight that he's at?
Yeah, look, it is hard, but then at the same time, I think you only have to look at what has been delivered in the US as well at those lower weights, some of the best fights out there over the years. And he wants Galal wants the proper fights. He wants the big fights. He wants to move quickly. He's quite open. He's not the biggest talker. He's not the most controversial figure. But I think his boxing, especially as he steps up, will show, the quality, and he's going to build a good fan base.
For prospects on the card, I've always wondered, do Matchroom kind of set a barometer or a target for a return on investment in a sense? Put them on the cards, putting them out there. Do you kind of set when you want to see something back from, or when you can make it's a business side of it and make a return on what you've put out in terms of signing them? Yeah,
look, there's certain fighters that go on shows that we have to, obviously. Ticketing is a big part of that, especially for the undercard fighters. Other fighters that are signed to us have got longer term plans that we build into. Other fighters on the card will be, one-offs. But there's been some great ticket sellers on this show as well. It's going to be a great atmosphere in there for a whole host of the fighters, 9 fights on the card. But yeah, there's definitely factors we work towards when we look at who we put on.
Moving on to the wider news in boxing, first of all, look, Alycia Baumgardner testing positive for performance-enhancing substances. She released a statement as of Matchroom. Can I get your reaction to the knowledge of the test?
Yeah, look, I can't go into too much detail, as our statement said. Obviously, as with the Dillian Whyte situation, these matters are confidential. I believe every fighter should be given the opportunity and the process to go through that. And then once more details are available, it's hard because everyone says, well, what were they tested for? What was this? And we can't talk about it. It's not our position to talk about it. So it is difficult. And I understand people's frustrations, but I think at the same time, we have to let people go through that process and then work from there. It's not, I think it's been a difficult year of these things coming through. Look, the key for us and the focus for us as a business is to ensure a safe sport. And that's why we invest in, significant testing across our fights. We're delivering 40 shows a year, nearly 400 fights a year, and that's the focus for us, is the safety of the sport, and will continue to be.
There's been some scrutiny in terms of the speed in which drug-free sport are able to return back any findings in results. Are you happy with how quick the results came back from the initial tests?
I think, look, I've seen, answering that in a few parts, I've seen some people question what's the point in fight week testing when you don't get the results back. You couldn't test on a Wednesday, Thursday and get the results back realistically. And people don't understand, there's only a couple of labs that these tests go to around the world, to get tested, whether it's VADA, whether it's drug-free sport, across all of these different bodies. I think it's still important to do fight week testing, because people could still do something and it could show up in their system, and we know, you find out at a later date. One thing that is important to note is that when a test is positive, there's a further process that's gone through, because there wasn't so much of because this was post a fight, so the results were always coming back post the fight. They would have run it through further tests, and that's natural procedure in all of these bodies. And like I say, the majority of tests go to the same labs. So in terms of how busy a lab is. It's the same for the majority of testing bodies, and that sometimes during this busier period of the summer they do take a little bit longer. But the difference is that a positive test would be run, further via further procedures, and that's why the result would have taken slightly longer.
Assets to yourself. Can Matchroom take any harder stance when it comes to positive tests of performance-enhancing substances? I appreciate that. Look, you're trying to test more, and what will happen is if you test more, then there will be more positive tests. But in terms of your stance, when you get those positive test results, can you do more from your perspective?
Look, right now we're not the governing body of the sport. I do think the biggest difficulty in the sport is there's not one central body. That will always be tough on a global level, but realistically I don't see there being a global body of the sport. We invest in the testing, we're paying for the testing. At that point, once the results come back, it's down to the various regulatory bodies. So in this instance, it would be the commission, it would be the sanctioning bodies to make their decision. We can't decide a fighter's career in terms of what they can go on and do after that. That's down to the various bodies, and that's where the procedure comes into place, that the fighters have to go down that route. I'm not sure there's much more from our perspective we can do. We obviously want to ensure the sport is as safe as possible, and that's why we put this stringent testing in place for a number of fights across the year. But it's now a case of the bodies involved taking that next step, and making a decision. But with the fighters having the ability to go through the due process.
Going into my territory, and I've not watched all of the exchanges between Simon Jordan and Eddie Hearn, but he made a point, I believe it was, that maybe a contractual clause can be put in for when performance-enhancing tests when test comes back positive, Matchroom can then cease involvement with that fighter if they don't prove their innocence. Is that something that's in place or thought to be in place in the future?
Yeah, but look, if a fighter is confirmed as guilty, once they go through the process, then yes. If a fighter's then innocent through the process, as we've seen, not just in boxing but other sports, it can be proven. Then at that point, I think it's fair to continue working with the fighter. Obviously, we feel once they go through the process, if a fighter is guilty, they have to serve the ban that is put in place. And beyond that, but we can't set those, if you understand what I'm saying. I believe everyone should have that opportunity to go through the process. Not being able to fight while that process is ongoing. Look at Conor Benn. Conor Benn hasn't fought. He got cleared by the WBC, right? At that point, they were the party involved. He could have carried on boxing because the WBC, an independent panel of specialists, made that decision. Then he dealt with the next problem, or the next situation, which was the UKAD National Anti-Doping Panel. He was cleared there. Now there's an appeal. I do feel, though, that it's about, as a sport, coming together, I think, and getting more clarity on, as a group, and I think this is where sanctioning bodies can come together. I think this is where commissions can work closer together, how it's dealt with. Because there isn't too much, there's not enough working together as a group, to ensure that there's a consistent method and system that's gone through at this point.
I think that's a fair point. Moving on to Jessica McCaskill had some choice words about this situation. Have you listened to those? And I believe she's issued a form of apology. Are you happy with that apology issued?
Yeah, I saw. I mean, it was quite ludicrous what she said. I'm personally not giving too much thought to it. Focusing on. We got to focus on what we're doing. I don't agree with what she said, obviously, and it was a crazy thing to say. Disappointing to hear. And we'll see what happens from here.
Will that fight go ahead with Ryan?
Yeah, currently that fight's going ahead with Sandy Ryan. But like I say, obviously, it's not something we can just stand by and accept, because it's such an insane statement to come out with.
Moving on to, you mentioned about Conor Benn. Look, an appeal is now being launched. Get a reaction to that appeal, and will Benn fight during that process? Eddie said that's very likely he will.
Yeah, look, Conor's clear. He's got no suspension with UKAD. He's cleared to fight. He's got an international license. There should be no reason why he can't fight. Look, it's been a long journey for him. It's been 10 months, 11 months now. He's been going through this process, and we felt like we got there the board, and UKAD, for whatever reason, left it to the day before to appeal. And it is what it is. But our focus is Conor Benn and ensuring we can get him active as soon as possible. Like I say, he's cleared to fight. He's ready to fight, and I'm not sure why the board have done that. But our focus is Conor Benn.
Respectful on Conor Benn's thoughts and feelings about it, but surely there's not an agenda against him. Do you feel that way?
I'm not going to look. I think some of the decisions that have been made are, look, he's gone through the process everyone asked, and that's what I'd say. He went down the WBC route. He was cleared on from the WBC. He then went to the National Anti-Doping Panel. They then lifted his suspension. There's a reason for that. Look, I don't want to go into too much more detail at this time. Like I say though, he's done everything asked of him, and I believe at that point he should be free to fight.
On to a couple more lighter things. Canelo.
Good. There are some lighter things.
Yes, there are. Well, we'll start off. Have you been glued to Netflix at home with the Furies? Been watching that?
No, I did see some clips where he was going to buy Blackpool Airport. I thought that was quite funny. At least we've got a nice landing strip we can use. I might have to see if I find his number and see if I can land in Blackpool Airport one day. But he's got a jet as well.
Maybe not tuned into At Home with the Furies, but tuned into Fury vs Ngannou in October.
Yeah, October 28th. I'm sure I'll be watching. Hopefully it's a better fight than the build-up will be great. I'm sure it's going to be entertaining, so let's see. It would be an interesting night.
Something I thought was interesting as well, Canelo named his best promotions in the world. It was a short list, but not on the list was featuring Matchroom Boxing. What was the situation there? I thought you'd feature on that list.
Me personally? Well, he didn't say Frank Smith, best promoter in the world. No, I think he was that the statement where he was up on the thing and he said, working with, look, he's working, he's obviously joined PBC. He said afterwards we're very close. I think he was saying as well, they've got the best opportunities and fights for him right now. And PBC have delivered some great fights. Delivered some great fights this year. And the Charlo fight's a brilliant fight as well. But it is what it is. Said he still has a very good relationship with Canelo. We delivered some great events with him, worked on him on 6 or 7 fights, and it was a great relationship. Maybe in the future it comes back.
How do you feel the projected fights for PBC with Canelo in terms of Charlo, the other Charlo brother, and potentially Benavidez fight? How do you feel they project against the fights that you've offered in the past to Canelo? Do you think they fare up? Do you think your fights were better?
I think they're all interesting fights. I think the Bivol fight would have been interesting, but it's hard to directly compare one to one. They're great fights. I'm not going to sit here and say they're not. Canelo Charlo's going to be a brilliant fight. I'm excited for it. I think Canelo will get the win. Direct comparison, they're all interesting, aren't they? We would have loved to have done the Berlanga fight. Would have been a great fight. The Bivol fight, as I say, but here's what it is. Maybe in the future it doesn't mean that door's shut.
A couple of fun things for myself. You've been locked in crunch talks for AJ versus Wilder. Sign of the line, yeah?
No, they don't let me sign things. I'm not trusted enough. But look, discussion's ongoing. I think it's great to see AJ so active and busy. And let's see how things go. There's still work to be done. Still lots of discussions to be had. But, it's positive that everyone's talking.
Eddie's not here in Birmingham at the moment because he's speaking with Billy Joe Saunders, it appears. Billy Joe Saunders is looking to return back this year or maybe next year?
I think this year. I think the end of this year. He's been in training a long time. He's been out of the ring for a long time now. And I think he wants to get back in there. Some big fights out there for him, for Billy to make. And I'd be excited to see him come back.
Potential names you'd like to see him in with?
I think we need to I think first things first is weight. He's understanding what weight he wants, maybe 168, 175. Let's see. But there's some great fights out there. Look, he's a massive character, Billy Joe, and been in some massive fights in boxing. I'm sure some big nights still to be delivered from him.
Thanks for speaking to SecondsOut. Much appreciated.